know about boring grammar lessons. Seriously, today we're not just learning rules, we're cracking a secret code. The hidden engine that makes every single powerful sentence work. And once you master it, the way you communicate gets so much clearer. Yeah, we're talking about subject-verb agreement. Okay, so before we dive in and break down all the rules, let's just test your gut feeling with a quick challenge. I'm going to show you two sentences, and all I want you to do is think, which one feels right? So, what do you think? Is it is reading or is it are reading? One of these is spot on, and the other one, well, it's a super common mistake that trips people up all the time. But hey, if you're not sure, don't even worry about it. By the end of this, you're going to know the answer, and way more importantly, you're going to know why it's the right answer. So let's get started breaking this code. All right, welcome to level 1. We're calling this Grammar's Golden Rule. And you really want to think of this as the solid, unbreakable foundation for everything else. Every other rule we're going to talk about today builds right on top of this one simple but really powerful concept. Let's check it out. And here it is, the golden rule itself. A singular subject gets a singular verb. A plural subject gets a plural verb. It sounds so simple, right? The dog runs. The dogs run. That seems easy enough. But the really tricky part is learning how to spot the true subject and figuring out if your verb is singular or plural to begin with. Okay, and right away, this is where we hit the first classic trap. In English, we all learn pretty early on to add an S to a noun to make it plural. Easy. Boy becomes boys. But just look what happens with verbs. It's the complete opposite. When you add an S to a verb like runs, it actually makes it singular. And this one little switch is where so much of the confusion gets started. All right, let's move up to level 2. This is where we learn how to dodge what I call distractor traps. You're going to see these on exams all the time. They're these little phrases that are basically designed to trick you by putting some distance between the subject and its verb. So here's the secret weapon. You've got to train your brain to see these phrases and just completely ignore them, like they're invisible. When you see along with, as well as, in addition to, these are not part of the subject. The verb just has to pretend they aren't even there. So let's go back to our first problem. The real subject here, the true subject, is just the teacher. That's singular. That whole phrase, as well as the students, it's just a distraction. So the verb has to agree with that first subject, the teacher. And just look at this. Once you mentally just cross out that distracting phrase, the sentence suddenly becomes so simple. The teacher is reading. See? All that confusion just evaporates. It's a fantastic mental trick to use. Okay, time for level 3. So what happens when you have subjects that are joined by words like or nor? Well, this one's different. It's not about ignoring anything. Instead, it's all about one thing. Who's closer to the verb? So in this sentence, we've got two subjects, right? We have principal, which is singular, and teachers, which is plural. The verb only cares about the one that's right next to it. So here, teachers is its next-door neighbor, so the verb has to be the plural are. But watch this. Look what happens when we just flip the subjects around. Now, the singular subject, principal, is the one that's cozying up to the verb. So just like that, the verb has to change to the singular is. It's that easy. The rule of proximity. What's closest is all that matters. Welcome to the expert level. This is kind of like the final boss of subject-verb agreement. Collective nouns. Words like team, jury, family, committee. So are they singular or are they plural? Well, the answer is, it totally depends on the context. Here's how it works. If the group is acting as one single unified unit, like a jury reaching one single verdict, you treat it as singular. The jury has reached a verdict. But if the members of the group are acting like individuals, say, arguing with each other, then the group is divided, and you use a plural verb. The jury were divided. Unity versus division. That is the key. All right, you've learned the core rules. You're ready. It's time for a rapid-fire final exam. We're going to debunk 3 super common myths that trip people up constantly, especially on tests. First up, those tricky words that end in S but aren't actually plural. The myth is that words like physics or news or mathematics are plural. Nope, they're actually single concepts or fields of study. So, the news is on at 6, not are. Myth number 2 is a really subtle one, but it's so important. A number of basically just means many, so it takes a plural verb. A number of students are coming. But the number of refers to a specific figure, a single amount. The number of students is 20. That one little article, a or the, it changes everything. And our final myth, that none is always, always singular. This used to be a really strict rule, but modern grammar has changed. Now it can be singular or plural, and it just depends on what it's referring to. So none of the cake is left, because cake is singular, but none of the students are here, because students is plural. Context is king here. So now let's circle all the way back to that very first question. After everything we've just covered, the answer should be pretty clear. The teacher is our true subject. That whole as well as the students part, that's just the distractor trap. So the singular subject teacher takes the singular verb is. You've officially cracked the code. So let's just put it all together in a super simple 4-step checklist. To nail this every single time, here's what you do. First, find the real subject. Second, you've got to learn to ignore those distractor phrases. Third, always check for proximity with or and nor. And finally, fourth, when you see a collective noun, just ask yourself, is it unity or is it division? So, I'll leave you with this last thought. You are now armed with the expert knowledge to see these rules in action all around you. And I promise, you are going to start noticing these common mistakes everywhere. In emails, on menus, on social media. So the question is, what error do you think you're going to notice first?